everybody? Lord Tremendous here, and I got another book review for you. So, this book is The Many Adventures of Peter and Fee. That's the way I'm going to pronounce it because it's short for Fiara, but I'm going to say Fee because I like the way that rolls off the tongue better. This is a interesting book, to say the least. It is a fantasy adventure, sword and sorcery type of book. I'm not going to say high fantasy, but it flirts with it. It is really good. I got it. The author reached out to me and asked if I would check out his book, and I'm really glad I did. I got it off of Kindle for like $2.99, so it wasn't bad at all. It is available on audiobook for $7.49 and paperback for $9.99 as of this recording. It's about 234 pages, and it was published December 14th, 2018, so it's a relatively new book. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. When I first saw the cover, art, I was like, is this young adult? Because as you can see, it's very cartoonish. And I'm like, is this some sort of weird anime book? I saw the ears on the chick and I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those weird kink books or whatever. I'm really not into those, but you know what? It's identified as fantasy. I'm going to go ahead and check it out because it falls into my criteria. And as much as I like to be a jerk, I'm here to give things a chance. And I got to be honest with you, I think it's Kelvin Fernandez. If I'm saying that wrong, I apologize. Did an amazing job. Talk about subverting expectations. So first of all, the cover is misleading as hell. It is dark. Okay, this book is wonderful, number one, and it is also serious dark fiction. All right, we're talking Alice in Wonderland if you take away all that cutesy stuff. There's a lot of amazing things that happen. It does involve, the guy on the left is Peter, and he is something called a bubble mage, and it's cool. This, in his world, in Mr. Fernandez's world, mages are people that have been touched by the source of magic. I guess basically God left, but when he left this magical wind, fart, burp, whatever you want to call it. And it just randomly touches people. It's super rare, but when it does, it gives them abilities. It's not really magic, it's just abilities. So for example, this bubble mage, he doesn't make bubbles just out of nothing. His hands exude a soapy like substance that he can fill with air, and that's it. Like that's the one thing he can do, and how he manipulates that and how he works all that is how his quote unquote magic works. He can't learn like fireball or lightning bolt or anything like that. He does bubbles, and he can make them really, really big. He can make them really small. He can make them really strong, really weak. It's very, very cool. I like the way he does magic. He runs into other mages occasionally in the story. One is like she can give off any scent that she's experienced before or that she can make up. That's her power, and how she uses it and what she uses it for is completely up to her, but that's it. She'll never be able to like shoot arrows out of her fingertips or anything like that. There's another guy who can manipulate iron very weakly, I might add, but he discovers that there's iron in blood, so he becomes the blood mage. Very cool concept. So the book is also written, from what I understand, because he has a little author's note at the end of the book, from what I understand, this whole Peter and Fee adventure started off as kind of like something he was writing on a website just to experiment because he had another idea. And it took a life of its own, and so he turned it into his first book, which I'm really, really glad he did because it's a lot of fun. Reading this book is fun. It's a little different, though, because normally in a book like this, a novel like this, you would expect, to travel with the characters, Lord of the Rings style, where you're going from A to B, and then when you get to the epic parts where the big adventure, the big fight, the big whatever, the encounter happens, it's like you've earned it. In this book, it kind of yada 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 is past all that. You start every chapter, and they are a handful of pages away from the big fight or the big interaction or whatever the huge thing is, and the resolution to it happens real quick too. So every chapter is like a short story. So in the way I see this book is that every chapter, the whole book is just a collection of really short stories that are all connected, and it goes in sequence mostly. It's you kind of go back and forth a little bit towards the end because you get Fee's backstory just a bit, and it's really fun. I can't stress that enough. I really, really enjoyed this book a lot more, especially when I was surprised by it. Like, I really didn't expect that either. I'm reading the book and I'm like, oh my God. I can't wait to get to the spoiler section because I want to talk about some of the stuff that they run into. It's fantastic. That all being said, I do feel like there's this rich, vibrant, immersive world that these two live in, that Peter and Fee live in, that I'm missing out on. I don't know how else to say it. While the stories are fun and the world is rich and the characters are super entertaining, really interesting, I mean, the author does an amazing job of bringing them to life. The world itself is like fantastic, and I feel like I'm missing it. Not so much that it ruins the story or the book, but it just feels like I'm being left out of something, and I'd really like to know more. I really hope in volume 2 maybe he fleshes out the world a little bit more, or makes it go from short stories to a little bit more detail. But that's just me being greedy. That's just I want to give me. If he were to keep to the formula he's currently in, and the story continues in volume 2, which I believe he's writing, I'd be entertained. I'd be happy reading that too. I'm not going to lie. There is a moderate amount of spelling and grammar errors. Not so much that it ruins the book or anything like that, but it does stop the reading flow. It does jar you a little bit. So there is that. Not that it makes it a bad book. It's not like it ruins the story or anything, but they are there. This book could use a little bit more editing. Maybe an outside editor or something like that comes in. Although, that all being said, no book is, especially a self-published book, is going to be perfect. Hell, even a professionally published book isn't going to be perfect. That's why first editions are sought after. They typically have a whole bunch of mistakes. So it's understandable, but it's a book review channel, and I'd be remiss if I were to neglect that. Other than that, though, this book is a solid 4.5 out of 5. I can't give it 5 because, like I said, I really wish I could have sunk my teeth into the world a little bit more, and the spelling and grammar and punctuation errors are noticeable. They happen enough where it's like, and again, I can't give it a perfect score because of those few things. Also, the rabbit chick, she's a 14-year-old. They call her a chimera. And it doesn't fully explain that. I'm sure later on maybe it will. But she can, every once in a while you want to throttle her. It's just like, come on now. You're 14 years old. Drop the attitude for just a second. Although she's got plenty of redeeming qualities, so she is a very likable character. So all in all, my honest opinion, this is a 4.5-star book out of 5. Really enjoyed it. I like these characters overall, the adventures and the craziness that they get into, and the Alice in Wonderland dark fantasy stuff that they run into. Holy God. It is something else, let me tell you. So, yes, this is not a children's book. This is 100% written for an adult, and don't let the cover fool you. Because it did me. Whoo! All right, so that's going to do it for the non-spoiler review. I'm going to play an ad, and then I'm going to get into the spoilers. Hey, also, everybody knows that just finishing a book isn't the entire battle. You gotta have an editor. Otherwise, there's a good chance your book is gonna be awful. So if you're looking for one, my editor, elatoria at Fiverr.com, is available for a very good price. If you want, go check her out. Spoilers are coming next, so if you're still here when the music stops, that's on you. All right, you guys are still here, so let's get into this. So the book starts off, and the Peter and Fee have hired a gnome, and I guess gnomes are very stupid, to tunnel them into a goblin stronghold that's deep underground. And this stronghold was built inside of a meteor that fell from the sky like 700 years ago. And everybody who's tried to attack it, to breach it, to get into it, has failed miserably. So Peter and Fee Peter really has devised a plan to go deep down into the goblin stronghold, the city, whatever you want to call it, in order to rob them. Basically, he wants the money because they're broke, and it works. The gnome is able to get them down into the goblin stronghold, and they get to the treasury relatively easily. You get to see a little bit of Fee's ability in combat. She's kind of a badass. Think more like a thief, stalker type of thing. She doesn't kill necessarily, but she does knock things out. And then they're able to just kind of walk into the treasury because the goblins didn't think anybody would ever be able to get down here, with good reason. So while they're down there Peter gets a little treasure struck, a little gold fever, and Fee's kind of irritated. You kind of get real quick that she's got a bit of an attitude. She's, a 14-year-old, I want to say, apprentice of his, ward. You get the idea that maybe he found her somewhere and he's trying to protect her / raise her / is just friends with her. It doesn't get dirty between them. There's no romance. There's no love story or anything like that. So don't think that this book gets weird, because honestly, I did. I thought the book was going to get a little weird. They're just really good friends on an adventure. Peter is a 20-year-old bubble mage, and you don't know that right away. But basically, the gnome makes a loud noise while they're looting the treasure chest, or the treasure hoard of the goblins, and the goblins come down and they get caught. They get taken in front of the Goblin King, who's this massively obese lunatic straight out of The Hobbit. And after Peter is really, submissive and complimentary and everything to the Goblin King, he sees his opportunity. He starts doing his bubble magic, and sure enough, they're able to escape using Fee's rabbit-like abilities to jump and Peter's bubble magic, which is actually very cool. After that, though, that's it. They leave. They don't really have anything on them except for a little silver bird with diamond eyes and his mage crest thing, which is what he got, that identifies him basically as a mage. It has his name on it, and it's got the crest of the mage tower that he studied at, which is interesting. It's kind of neat that they have that. It's like basically their FBI badge. It's kind of neat. So anyway, that's it. They walk off. They escape. The goblins are, of course, in a tizzy like an anthill that was kicked over. But for the most part, that's it. They move on to the next one. That's the end of the chapter. That's the end of that little short story. The next one, they're trying to get passage to a city, Peter's home city, and he has to go and talk to an old captain friend of his. Well, I wouldn't say friend. Somebody that he worked with for a while that he betrayed so he could escape them. He goes over, uses a little silver bird with diamond eyes to settle their debt, and then, of course, they get plunged into this weird side quest, I guess, in order to book passage on this guy's ship. And that's the end of that story. The next story is them on the trail to go and attack this big frog thing. Like a frog with a tail. It's a big, like, demon lizard thing that moves like a frog, basically, is what I got out of it. And it's the size of a house. And it's like him, Fee, this really badass warrior chick, and like 10 red shirts. And they go and they find this frog thing, and they fight it, and it turns out it's killing them. And it gets really brutal, like evisceration, guts hanging out, people getting chopped in half. It's like, okay. To go back to the goblin thing, how right away this is not a kid's book. It starts talking about his harem and how goblin bits are hanging out. It's like, oh my, and there's some swearing. It's like, okay, this is a book written for a guy like me. Got it. So anyway, back to where I was. They are able to take down the big frog thing thanks to Peter's bubble magic. He does something kind of clever, and then the warrior chick is able to finish off the big ribbit, and it's over. They're like, oh, that sucked, and it did. Like, you really, like, yeah, that was rough. So next thing you know, that chapter ends. You go to the next chapter. They're on the boat, and they're heading back to Peter's hometown, which is the capital city of this kingdom that they're in. And the captain betrays them. Go figure, right? So it's looking like Peter and Fee are about to get burned alive when enter a new character. This guy Jack shows up, and he's basically the voice of the queen, who's the authority in the kingdom or whatever. And he's able to free Peter and Fee. He gets the captain kind of like culled a little bit. And next thing you know, that's the end of that little adventure. And they're in the city, and Jack and Fee are talking, and you get a little bit more backstory about them. And they get into the city, and the city is a human cesspool. Just face to face, bodies cramped in everywhere, poverty, hunger, stank, you name it. Like the worst parts of the Red Keep. I'm just saying, or King's Landing. I apologize. So they get in, they have to go talk to the queen. Peter has been summoned by the queen, and you find out a little later it's because she's trying to put together a mage team to invade another kingdom to get some priceless artifact. It's very weird. You never really get back to it. Maybe it'll be in volume 2. Anyway, Peter goes to the castle to meet with the queen. Turns out the queen's out of town on business, so they've got to deal with one of the most wretched 12-year-old characters I've ever read about. She's the princess, the queen's over-entitled, overindulged, never disciplined, lunatic daughter. She literally, so you walk in, and you're going to see why I make the Alice in Wonderland reference in a second. Peter gets escorted in to the castle, and he meets with this princess who is in the middle of a morbid, macabre tea party, very much like the Mad Hatter if the Mad Hatter had an R rating. Okay, so he sits down. First, there's a white knight that's 9 feet tall with an 8-foot long two-handed sword that's just like, he's a legend. Everybody knows about this guy, everybody loves this guy, and everybody fears this guy. So Peter recognizes him and goes, oh my god, I'm sitting across a tea table with a 12-year-old lunatic princess and a living legend. And then there's a fourth guy at the table, and he has this weird metal tube sticking out of his chest, and he does not look happy about it. He kind of looks like he's dying. But Peter, not wanting to join him, wisely, decides to indulge this princess, who is the worst kind of brat. Like, a brat with power, and she knows it. Like, one of the lines, she asks the queen's voice, this guy Jack, who's been actually very nice to Peter and Fee, she's like, oh, look, it's the coward. Who's your favorite princess of all time? And he's like, of course you. Of course I am, you coward. Get away from me. Like, she's just wretched, absolutely horrible. Like, I usually don't like the idea of punting kids around, but in this situation, I would happily strap on some steel-toed boots. I mean, just read the book, you'll understand. So anyway, during the tea party, this manipulative little brat just kind of listens to Peter, but she was never interested in anything he had to say because it wasn't about her. So she goes, oh, I'm sorry, where are my manners? Let me get you some tea. And she looks over at the White Knight, pour him some tea. So he takes dude's cup, and he grabs that spigot that's sticking out of dude and pours his blood into the cup. Okay? And it's not a joke. It's not some euphemism. It's straight up dude's blood. So Peter is like, I don't want to drink that. And she goes, oh, it's just pretend. And she shows him. Her glass is empty. So she shows him like how to fake drinking the tea. He mimics it, and she seems happy for a second until she sees him eyeballing the pastries that are on the table. It's been a little while since he ate, and he's looking at them, but she misunderstands. She thinks he wants one. He's looking at it like, if she's pouring blood into my cup, what human bits did she bake into those pastries? How awful are those pastries? She goes, have a pastry. And he's like, no, I couldn't. Thank you, but I couldn't. She goes, it's rude to, refuse food from your hostess or whatever. And he's like, damn it. So he eats a pastry, and it turns out it's a normal pastry. but it's super dry, and she knew they were super dry. So she starts asking him a bunch of questions. Well, he's having trouble answering because his throat is dry, because his pastry has got like some sort of salt, moisture absorbing thing in there. It's the gluten. It's always the gluten. Anyway, so he has no choice. She's like, answer me right now, or the night is gonna skewer you or whatever. He's like, damn it, the only thing for him to drink is the blood. So he has to take a couple of swallows of dude's blood in order to wash down this dry ass sandy biscuit. And he's just, I mean, it's as awful as you can think. I mean, and the author does a wonderful job describing it. The princess is laughing because that's what she was planning the whole time. And then it turns out that she doesn't know what her mom wants with him. He doesn't know what the queen wants with him. So she's like, you can stay here until she gets back in the dungeons. And so White Knight, this 9 foot tall beast, grabs Peter. And as you can see on the cover, he's kind of a little dude, grabs his ass up and starts walking him to the dungeons. And Peter doesn't want to go to the dungeons. He's got to take care of Fee. They got places to go, people to see. He doesn't want to rot in the dungeon until the queen gets back. So he's like, no, please, I can be useful to you. I'm a bubble mage. I can entertain you. I can do stuff. Just please don't put me in a dungeon. And she's like, wait, bring him back. And so the knight brings him back, and she goes, and he's like all relieved, like, oh, cool. All right, cool. She's going to have me doing some stuff, but whatever. It's better than being in the dungeon. Nah. She tells him it's rude to walk away from the tea party without finishing your drink. So he's got to finish the blood in the teacup, and then he goes to the dungeon. Yeah, she is something else. So anyway, Fee ends up walking around the city while she's waiting for Peter to get back because she gets bored waiting for him. And she's irritated that she got left behind. They did give her a good reason why, but she's a 14-year-old brat, and so, it is what it is. Long story short, she ends up wandering around until she finds like the zoo, and of course the princess shows up with this Black Knight, who's just as intimidating as the White Knight, only the Black Knight's a bit more of an asshole, while the White Knight's more of a paladin, a pious kind of guy. So Fee hears the princess talking to the Black Knight about what they did to Peter, and she wants to know what's going on because Peter's her friend, like her only friend. And so she gets in this 12-year-old's face and is like, what's the deal? And the princess doesn't like being talked to like that, so of course she tells the Black Knight to kill her. Fee is pretty quick, and she's not, surprised at the fact the guy's trying to kill her, so she gets around him. It's actually a pretty cool little scene. And she grabs the princess by the hair. The princess, who's never been disciplined in her life, has no idea what's going on, starts running her mouth. Fee punches her in the face, bounces her head off the concrete floor. It's awesome. And then she kind of uses the princess as a human shield for the Black Knight. The princess is freaking out because she's bleeding from the nose and her head's wrung. But the Black Knight can't attack her without perhaps, putting the princess in danger. Black Knight's a little bloodthirsty. He decides, screw it, I'm going for it. I see an opening. Fee goes, damn, he's quick. And he would have got her, but the White Knight shows up and blocks the Black Knight's attack, knocks him away. And is like, what are you doing? Your job is to protect the princess. This kid could have killed her. And so the Black Knight's all like, well, she's got her prisoner. What am I supposed to do? If you had been doing your job, this never would have happened. So the White Knight basically cows the Black Knight, turns around, drops to a knee, and asks Fee, what can he do to neutralize this situation? And Fee's like, free my friend and escort us out of the city, and I'll release the princess. I want your word. And the White Knight's word is his bond. Like, he will not break it. He'd sooner die than break it. And it's not like anybody can kill him. So she lets the princess go. The Black Knight takes her to whatever scumbaggery she wants to retreat to, and they escape. She frees Peter, and that's more or less the end of that adventure. And then the next adventure, they are in a swamp looking for a forest that'll lead them to Fee's hometown. And they run into another wizard who can do the weird smells and everything like that, and they give her a little advice. There's a little spark between her and Peter, but then that's it. Like they get through the forest and stuff like that, and that's it. They move on to the next little part of the adventure, which is them going through a deep, dark, cannibalistic or meat eat carnivore forest, and but Fee spent a lot of time in that forest. It's like right outside the city that she grew up in, and so she knows all the secrets and everything like that. So you get to see a lot of really fantastic things about the environment, and that's when you start to realize, or at least when I started to realize, that that I'm missing out on some of the world, and it bothered me. It bothered me a little bit at that point. It's like, God, there's so much about this world I don't know, and I want to know more. So that's a good thing because the world is making me hungry for more, but it's kind of a bad thing too because I never get that itch scratched, if you can understand what I mean. So anyway, they get past the forest and they find Fee's old town, old city, and you get her backstory growing up, which is for 6 years she grew up with her beast of a dad, basically a half giant, and her mother, who turns out to have been. At first, you just think she's a sweet lady that loves her daughter, bunny ears and everything. Well, Fee is known as a chimera, which is a forbidden union type of thing. Like when certain people see her, they try to kill her because her potential to grow up into a huge scary monster is very, very real. Which becomes evident when somebody attacks their town, kills everybody in the town, including her mom and dad. But before that happens, her mom becomes this huge, hideous, werebeast thing. And she's not super effective. This guy that has like a spinal cord whip thing with burning coals on it really hurts Fee, kills her dad, kills her mom, and or I'm sorry, kills her mom and really hurts her dad. But her dad pledges his fealty and loyalty to the guy who's killing everybody and his army if he'll let Fee survive, just simply because he knows where this super strong artifact is. The guy agrees, and they literally leave a 6-year-old Fee all to herself, surrounded by everyone that's dead in this burned down town. She spent the next 6 years of her life. She was 8 years old. I'm sorry. So she spent her first 8 years of life growing up in the city or in this little town, and then the next 6 years alone running around in the forest until Peter finds her, which you only get hints at. It never really tells you that story. Maybe in volume 2. I'm fine with it. But that's more or less where it ends. There, you understand that Peter is on this mage quest. It's called the Impossible Quest, where he's trying to find God. He asked for it. Don't know any more than that. And Fee is trying to find her father, who she believes, hopes anyway, is still alive because he left with this guy and swore up, down, and sideways that he would live and come back for her. I'm thinking he's dead, but we'll see. You also see a little bit of monster come out of Fee at one point, and I'm really curious to see what happens when she, Super Saiyans or Hulks out or something. Big were bunny or something. So that's really where this one ends, and it is a fun story. Like I said, it is a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the only reason it's not 5 out of 5 is because I just feel like I wanted more of the world. I wanted more immersion in the world because it just seems so fantastic. It seems so interesting of a place. The mages, I'm getting snippets of so many very, very cool things. And while it's enough to indulge and entertain, it's not enough to sate my curiosity. I want to go there. I want to walk around. I want to explore. I want to know. And then, just like any other book where I get to the big fights, the big high action scenes, and all that stuff, when I feel like I've earned it. But again, it doesn't. It's just different. It's just I'm used to a certain way of storytelling, but it's so good. I enjoyed this book so much, and even the spoiler review was more kind of fractioned and stuff. I left a lot out just simply because I want you to go read this book. It is so much fun. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you check it out. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, there are some spelling, grammar, and formatting mistakes. Like chapter 5 on the ebook is all messed up. Just like where it's like it basically comes at the end of chapter 4. There's like a handful of spaces, and then chapter 5, it's minor formatting things, but it's jarring. You notice it. And yeah, like I said, I'm nitpicking a little bit, but it's a book review. That's what I've got to do. But yes, if you get the opportunity, don't let the cover deter you. This is a really good adult fantasy book. So that's going to do it for the spoiler review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you check it out. If you do check it out, feel free to come back here and jump in the comments section and let me know what you thought of it. Agree, disagree, or anything in between. I'd love to have a conversation. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints about this review, feel free to put it in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. But as always, guys, thanks.